Yeah, 32 degrees of insanity. Donny, Gillson, 9:16 in the p.m. right here on freedomizerradio.com. According to Terrell, at this point in time, we should be having a massive 9.0 earthquake. Terrell is over on Clyde Lewis's show tonight on Ground Zero, but I see we've got a lot of people tonight for a wonderful, exciting show that we are going to have. I have my special guest, Guy Needler, on the show tonight. The author of The History of God is going to be joining me. Chris Gio, my special co-host this evening of TruthFrequencyRadio.com, also will be joining me on the broadcast tonight. I want to thank you all very much for listening to the show. We've had a lot of things happening since Monday. A lot of major earthquakes, 2 big earthquakes. We had 2 in Mexico, over, I guess, 300, from what I understand from Roy Martin, over 300 different earthquakes in the last 2 days. Amazing, to say the least. Chris Gio, are you there?
Hey, Donny, thanks for having us on.
Hey, how are you? And Guy Needler, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
All right, so it sounds like we have a little bit of, I don't know, are we outside somewhere? Do you hear that, Chris?
I do hear that background noise. I'm not sure what that is, but
let's do this. There, it sounds much better. Guy?
Hello there.
That sounds much better. Well, welcome. See,
Thank you for having me on the show, Donny. It's been great, and it's good to hear you again, Chris. It's fantastic.
Oh, absolutely. You know, that was one of the best shows that we've done in a while, Guy, and we've gotten so many emails thanking us for bringing you on. So your information was amazing. And when you started channeling, like I said on the program, I really didn't buy too much into the whole channeling thing until I saw you doing it. And then once you did it, I felt this energy just surge. And that's what really just piqued my interest. And a lot of people in the chat room were also saying, my God, do you feel that? Do you feel that? And people were emailing, said, yes, I feel it too. So there's definitely something to it, and we really appreciate your energy.
Well, thank you very much for saying those kind words. It's nice to get that sort of feedback, in actual fact, because there's as you quite rightly explained, there's an awful lot of people out there who don't really understand the aspect of channeling and what it means to be able to access the higher frequencies and the entities that are within those higher frequency realms. And to be honest, when I set my latest book in for editing, which is called Beyond the Source, by the way, that should be on the shelves within the next 2 or 3 months.
Mm-hmm.
My editor said that she had to sit down and think about it because the energy in the book was so high for her. She was having to go up a few gears to make sure she could work with it. So again, that was excellent feedback. That the book and the words have the energy there to prove that what's being said is actuality and not just fiction.
Well, one of the things that I read, Guy, I read a review about your book, The History of God. I want to read this quote to everybody. Absolutely, probably one of the best quotes I've heard about a book. After reading this book, there should be no more questions about God, the universe, and creation. Guy Needler has covered every subject possible through years of working on this project. He discovered a way to transport himself through meditation to the highest dimensions where God and co-creators exist. The History of God explains where God came from, the creation of the universe, the galaxies, the planets, and finally life on Earth, including humans, and the purpose behind the creation of all things. Also including the information extraterrestrials as similar species and their involvement with the human race. Now this is, I don't know, Guy, if you were listening to the first 15 minutes of the program, that little excerpt that you heard in the beginning of the program was something that I did back in 2007 when I created a thing called The Message. And it was an internet broadcast that we did talking about trying to raise the vibrational frequency. And one of the main reasons why I wanted you to have you here on Wednesday night tonight is because of this prediction that has been said about March 22nd about some sort of celestial body that's supposed to cause major earthquakes. I felt that maybe we could help shift that consciousness and bring the energy level of this world a little higher by having you on the show.
Well, thank you very much for that. It was just as you were saying that, I was logging into the what we call the event space, rather than time zone, because time doesn't exist, as we all know. And some of the listeners out there may well realise that things are moving a bit quickly. The day's going a bit faster than expected, or too fast.
Yes.
We're not getting enough time to do stuff. And this is all part of what's going on. As we rise to the frequencies, we start to lose that concept of time. So things are starting to happen in terms of events now, rather than in terms of, clock time, as it were, as a descriptor. And I'll log into that date. The events that are happening around, not specifically the date as such, but the events that are happening are also actually to do with the shift. If you can imagine that as we ourselves start to become more aware, our frequencies rise. We become more aware as a result of that frequency rise, and then become more aware again, and our frequencies rise again. So it's like if you like, a geometric progression upwards, an exponential progression upwards. And as we do that collectively, and we have little pockets of people doing that, and like-minded people talking to each other, just as we're doing now. And by the way, with the triangulation effect that's happening between myself here in the UK and you guys over there in the States, that drags along a whole corridor or area of individuals all doing the same thing, all focusing on the same event space all at the same time. Then we all help towards raising the bulk frequency of those individuals and the Earth. And as a result of that, the Earth also rises to the frequencies, and it also starts to lose its physicality. And things like earthquakes, volcanoes, tsunamis, major strange weather conditions are all the result of the Earth's shifting in frequency, because we're shifting in frequency, because the Earth won't shift in frequency unless we do, because we are, if you like, the major evolving component on the planet right now.
What do you think about this this whole prediction on massive earthquakes? I mean, we had just 2 major earthquakes happen here in Mexico. Do you believe that it's maybe God waking us up a little bit? Because of course, no major injuries have been reported in regards to this. That's a blessing as it is, right there.
Let me slug into that question one moment. No, I don't think it's God punishing us, because
no.
Why would our Creator punish its children? Or in fact, even more fundamentally, why would God punish itself? Because we are smaller aspects of that which created us, and therefore we are still part of that energy that created us. No, it's not punishing us in any way, shape, or form.
I guess I should reword that. What I was trying to say is, since there were no casualties, and maybe it was just to wake us up spiritually and mentally that, hey, I'm here. Remember, I'm here. Just giving the world a little bit of a rattle to bring that frequency up.
You can look at it in that way, yes, but it's also proof of the fact that we are in fact evolving and rising to the frequencies, because the Earth, as it is affected by our rising frequency, has to also rise to that frequency. And if you like, it shudders as a result of that, and we get earthquakes, and we get weather phenomena, we get volcanoes, because the physicality of the Earth is being lost, and it's becoming a higher frequency. And if you think about it in terms of, let's use simple physics to explain it. If the Earth is represented by a block of ice, and it is maintained at that low frequency that creates ice, i.e. it's cold, and we start to warm it up by giving it a higher frequency, the ice melts and becomes water. And subsequently, if we give that water more energy, or we increase its frequency, it becomes steam, which is a lower frequency gas, and then it becomes, if we give it more energy, therefore more frequency, it becomes a completely invisible gas, which is part of the air. Well, it's the process of going from the ice to the water is what's happening right now with the Earth, and it's starting to, if you like, lose its physicality and become more and more less physical, if that's an understandable way of saying it.
Sure.
things like earthquakes are basically the surface of the Earth cracking because it's starting to lose its density, its physicality, because it's rising to the frequencies as we do. And these earthquakes that you've been experiencing are localized. I was going to use the word phenomena, but they're localized areas of higher frequency, and therefore, because the people in those areas are of a higher frequency, the Earth in that area starts to lose its density, and it's, if you like, there's a little bit of a battle happening between that part of the Earth which is of a higher frequency and the rest of it which is of a lower frequency, and therefore you get cracks appearing.
I don't know if you've still got some speakers. I'm hearing a little bit of feedback. Chris, is that you by chance? I don't know.
No, everything sounds fine on my end.
Everybody, okay, I was hearing a little bit of feedback. Wasn't quite sure what that was. One of the, as we approach, of course, the winter solstice on December 21st, 2012, as we approach the galactic rift, and of course, the Mayans have said that this is going to be the change in consciousness. Some have said that. And I don't know if you have any familiarity with this, but some said that back in 2007, when Comet Holmes went through, that was considered the Blue Kachina, and basically when that blew up on October 24th of 2007, that was the beginning of the awakening of most so-called angelic beings on this planet, to help others bring forth the new world or the new age. What are your thoughts on that, and to bring us into the 2012?
Well, the awakening's been happening for quite some time before 2007. Mm-hmm. We've started to rise to the frequencies quite a distance before. If you don't mind me one moment, Donny, I'm getting told I need to let the source entity take over and answer your question in a more profound way.
Okay.
The human race is an important aspect of that which is in this particular physicality. The universe is a specific universe which is specifically for the physical and the aspect of evolving in the lowest of the frequencies. Within the Earth, you have been given free will, and it is important to note that with the aspect of free will, there is a need for me as the creator of all that there is within the multiverse, and specifically this universe, to let you do what you do, irrespective of the supposed good or bad points about that, because you are all evolving as a result of it. You all learn from the good and the bad, although it's important to note that there is no good and bad. With the humanity incarnate on Earth right now, there is a great change occurring. For nearly 40 years, the frequencies have started to rise. Some dates in time, if you want to use that method of understanding the events that are happening, are sequential with the movements upwards in frequency. Frequency has been moving in a most gradual pace towards certain milestones, if you want to use those words. Milestones that are where you should be or could be should certain events occur. So from 40, 50 years ago, humanity started to change the way it thinks as a collective entity and has moved upwards. So when we move from a medieval situation to where we are now, where people are starting to become awake, humanity starts to rise to the frequencies. Mm-hmm. This is a gradual occurrence that happens. The milestone that is at the end of the year you call 2012 is merely a milestone along the way. There can be no knife edge in terms of a leap upwards in frequency, because that is not sustainable. It is just as easy to fall down as it is to jump upwards in this respect. So from the aspect of evolution and from rising to the frequencies and becoming more aware, The last 5 years have been significant because there has been an acceleration. This is, as you would expect, geometric, and so the acceleration in 5 years would have been greater than in the last 50 years. So in some respects, those who make note of a date 2007 and can relate to certain phenomena that have been expected in the physicality, locale physicality of the Earth, there may be some usefulness for mankind to anchor their consciousness on certain events as being noted or notory in that delivery.
Right.
So if you move upwards to 2012, then mankind is much further up the frequencies than it was in 2007. And 2007 it is much further up the frequencies than it was in 1965, for example. But the increase in frequency is gradual and sustainable, and this is where mankind is winning right now. The movement upwards in the frequencies is a delight for me to see, for you are not moving in a sluggish manner now. You are starting to accelerate. The geometric progression is on the rise. The steep curve will be coming fairly soon. This may be outside of some of your physical lifetimes, but know this: mankind is moving in a most logical and most sustainable way in terms of their frequency rise, and the frequencies will be much higher than they are now, and many more individuals will become aware and start to access that which is the truth within the universe.
So we're winning.
Oof, sorry, I'll just come back there. Yes, yeah, we are winning, yes. We are winning, and to be honest, Donny, having shows like this where you're broadcasting the information to the wider population is one of the ways that we're winning with. You know, it's being able to speak about what the greater reality is, and although people like myself have got a grasp of, you know, a smaller aspect of that greater reality, that is a progression from that which we knew previously, is all part of this winning process, all part of this rising through the frequencies. Dolores Cannon talks about a new Earth where she says the Earth will split into two areas. There's all sorts of ways of explaining this, but my understanding is that there won't specifically be two Earths as such, although there will be those individuals who aren't evolved enough or aren't moving up through the frequencies with the change. They're not part of the triangulation effect. So in effect there will be those who will be struggling with the higher frequencies, and there are those who will move with the higher frequencies. And so you may well start to get people who move up the frequencies and become less apparent to those who are down in the frequencies. Some of you may have noticed, and if the listeners out there can think about their own situations for a moment, and if you two guys can also think about it, how many times have you been in the street or in the shops, and you've been waiting to be served, and you've been there in front of the desk or the kiosk before other people, and other people have been served before you, and you've been apparently invisible? Have you experienced that at all recently, or in the past year or so? Well, if you have, if you have, that's because you've been at a higher frequency than them, and they've not noticed you. And it's only when you've got a little bit angry or annoyed at not being served that you've come down the frequencies again, and you've been within their perception range. And it happens a lot, to be honest. And when you explain this to people, they start, you have a eureka moment. So that's what's happening. Well, the thing to do is not to get angry about it, but to try to extend your higher frequency to the individual who's supposed to be serving you, raising them up to your level, and then they'll perceive you. Rather than coming down to them, bring them up to you.
That makes logical sense, you know, and I've noticed that a lot with me as late. There'll be times when I'm just, you know, off and about, and I'm just doing my deal. None of these negative, what we call like trolls, I don't hear a peep from them. But then, of course, if something like, irks me, like for instance, recently my YouTube channel was closed down. I got a little peed off about it, and all of a sudden it was like a cavalry of these lower frequency type troll individuals just popping all over me. It was insane, and I was like, where did they all come on? They came out of the woodwork, and it was because I knew that I lowered my frequency and was not keeping on that higher elevation that I'm supposed to be on. Hey, Guy, I wanted to read something to you. Can I read something to you real quick? And I wanted to get your thoughts on this.
Yeah, sure.
All right. It goes, since May 1998, the various frequencies and intensities of light from the photon belt are no longer released at intervals. They are now bombarding the Earth with much more intensity and constantly. We are expected to stay in the first vortex for approximately 18 to 24 months, or perhaps a little less. There's a lot of adjustment to be made in the vortex before we can move to the next one. All humanity, on one form or another, is feeling the effects of the deep cleansing and makes the necessary changes within themselves to be able to move with and transform by this great light. I am repeating it again. There is no turning back at this point. You are going to have to decide for yourself now if you want to ride the ascension wave with the planet and be transformed into the new species of humans that will emerge from this transformation. In doing so, you must choose whether or not you will gain immortality and ascend into the consciousness of the new Earth on a fifth dimensional level, or you'll be crushed by the waves of changes by staying on the third dimension for another round of incarnation. The choice is entirely yours, and the opportunity is for all. However, those who resist the light and many changes it will bring will not be able to make it through the 12 vortices physically. We know that many will choose at a soul level and at our consciousness level to leave or vacate these physical bodies rather than go off with fears, preconceived ideologies, and personal agendas that are not serving to the greatest good and to the greatest good of all. They will choose this rather lovingly, allowing themselves to go the necessary steps of this transformation. These are also those who would be ready to come along for the ride, but because of their age, will be choosing to make the transformation from the other side of the veil. For those precious ones, this option is totally acceptable, and we ask you not to express sorrow for those loved ones. Allow them the choice by your willingness to let them go in peace. Honor the decision that they will get there at the same time as you do, and you will meet again.
That's an interesting piece of text, and what I'm going to say is that people who are able to think about making a decision are already on the way, because they're able to. They are becoming more aware. They are becoming more of a higher frequency aspect, and therefore starting to become more questioning of their environment. Mm-hmm. Those that don't question the environment, those that aren't interested, those, as you classify them as trolls, mm-hmm. those individuals who just aren't interested in things spiritual, they're only interested in themselves and who and what they are and what they can make and do and and survive on the earth. Mm-hmm. Those who don't even think about it won't evolve as such, won't go up the frequencies as such. So if you like, those who don't even think about it, there's not even a question there. They haven't even got a choice to make. They're going to stay where they are. Those who are thinking about it, I wonder if I'm going to rise to the frequencies, I wonder if I'm going to evolve further. Mm-hmm. Then you're already going to evolve, because you're of that level where you're questioning your physicality, you're questioning the what you perceive to be the physical reality around you. So in that respect, those individuals will by default move upwards anyway. Now, it's interesting that you mentioned the words third dimension, fifth dimension, and 12 vortices, mm-hmm. because spirit, the source entity, God, whichever way you want to describe it, give us information in ways that we will understand at particular points in our evolutionary process. So, even if it's slightly incorrect, now, we've been told lots and lots and lots that we're going to rise to the fifth dimension. Now, my information on the fifth dimension is such that it's a long way away, a long, long way away. In terms of the frequency levels and therefore the height upwards in the frequencies. To explain this further, I need to explain the structure of the multiverse, our source entity, our God's multiverse, to be able to get the listener to get a grip of why this statement of moving to the fifth dimension is not specifically accurate. We've been allowed to use it because it means that our thought processes are on the move upwards. So to go from the third dimension to the fifth dimension is a move upwards. We wouldn't have understood the greater detail surrounding what that meant, but we were allowed to use that piece of nomenclature because it gave us the thought process, the hope, the belief that we're going to move upwards, and then as a result of that, we do move upwards because we're on the rise, as it were. But notice, there's no talk of the fourth dimension at all. We're not going to rise. Why would we move up but miss the dimension out? Now, popularly, with scientists and with a lot of spiritual individuals, the fourth dimension is classified as time. But we know time doesn't exist. So if we know time doesn't exist from a spiritual perspective, then how can we miss out that which doesn't exist? So therefore we start to realise that description, that piece of current information that we've been given, isn't specifically accurate enough to describe where we're going. Now then, the comment on the 12 vortices and the moving through the 12 vortices is an interesting description because it actually relates quite nicely to the 12 frequency levels that are associated with the physical universe. Okay? Let me come backwards a bit further. When the source entity created the structure of the environment we call the multiverse, it created 12 full dimensions. Each of those full dimensions is structured into 3 subdimensional components, and each of those subdimensional components is inflated by 12 frequency bands. Now, from the second full dimension upwards, each frequency band that inflates each subdimensional component, which is the construct that creates each full dimension, houses a simultaneous universe. Notice I don't use the word parallel universe, it's simultaneous universe. But that universe is of a higher frequency and allows us to get closer to the pure aspect of which is that which created us, our God, the source entity. The bottom dimension, the 3 subdimensional components, create the first dimension. Now, they're not separated out. Because it's the lowest area, the lowest frequency, it becomes one by default. And therefore, whereas with the other full dimensions, we get 12 frequencies inflating each subdimensional component, and therefore there becomes 12 and 12 and 12. So there's 36 frequency bands within each full dimension above the first, and therefore you start to get 36 simultaneous universes as we progress upwards. It doesn't occur in the bottom one because we have to start somewhere, and the physical universe, in frequency-wise, is about as low as it gets. Well, it is as low as it gets, to be honest. So we've got 12 frequency bands that create the 3-in-1 aspect of the 3-dimensional subcomponents, which are compressed into one to create the first dimension. So if you think about where we're going to, the 5th dimension is 36 times 4 plus 12 frequency levels upwards, so it's an awful long way. Now, the 12 vortices relates quite, the source entity has been telling me as I've been speaking, relates quite nicely to the 12 frequency bands associated with the first dimension, which is where we are, the physical universe. And we have to move up through that to get to the next dimension. And where we're going to ascend into is the first 2 frequency bands associated with the first dimensional subcomponent of the second full dimension. So we have to move upwards into that. And then once we've done that, that area, that whole space, if you want to call it that is the first dimension, first full dimension, with those 3 subdimensional components all compressed into one, but inflated by those 12 frequency bands, which still only creates one universe, by the way. Will be closed up. That will be it then. We've done what we needed to do. We've moved out of that lower frequency environments, those 12 lower frequencies, and moved into the first 2. Because once we move into the first one, we move very quickly into the second one. Simultaneous universes that are associated with the frequency band, the first 2 frequency bands of the first subdimensional component of the second full dimension. So those 12 vortices are associated with the 12 frequency bands within our physical universe. Now, as human beings, I'm sorry if I'm moving on here quite quickly.
No,
as human beings, many spiritualists recognise that we have 7 auric layers, and there's 7 chakras associated with those auric layers. And although the middle 5, if you want to call it that, have got a forward and a front and back aspect to them as well. And those chakras are associated in some way with the auric layers, and each chakra is predominant on the auric layer that is associated with. So the first auric layer is predominantly associated with the first chakra, and the 7th auric layer is predominantly associated with the 7th chakra. But in my meditations and in my moving up and down the frequencies, I established that there's actually 10 layers, 10 auric layers associated with 10 frequency bands associated with the human aspect. The first 3 are associated with the pure physical. The next 4 are associated with the spiritual physical, that which we sometimes call the astral level. And then the next 3 above that are purely energetic. That's the communication medium between our higher self, that's part of us, which is not incarnate still, because there's only a small aspect of it which has been squeezed into the physical vehicle. And then that aspect of us, which is elsewhere, is above that. So we will move out from that 10th level, as it were, into those 2 other frequency bands, that's 11 and 12, and then the whole Earth and the whole universe, because as the Earth evolves and we rise to the frequencies, actually we start to affect the rest of the universe, because the Earth is extremely important experiment in free will. And if we take free will and we rise up and we become out of the lower frequencies that we've gotten ourselves into as a result of our free will, then the experiment in free will have been a complete success, and other physical or semi-physical races of entities will also be allowed to have individualized free will rather than collective free will. And so therefore other universes will be allowed to experience this level of evolutionary process that we've experienced, and also experience that rapid evolutionary process as a result of that.
Do you think it's going to be a you know, as you were talking here, I was kind of looking at something. It seems to me that the world itself, as a whole, is in this lower vibrational frequency, and there is just, you know, I would say maybe, you know, guesstimation, 1 million people, maybe out of the whole populace of the world, that seem to be on this higher vibrational level, or at least we feel we are, we think we are. Do you think it's going to be a small amount of people to rise through this frequency, or do you think that we will, as people that are in this higher frequency, can pull the others with us? And because I don't, you know, it kind of saddens me that people just don't want to wake up, some people.
Well, firstly, talking about those who don't wake up, they will simply stop their incarnation process on this particular planet, this particular area of physicality. So when they finish their incarnation, they will not continue to incarnate. It's on this planet as such, or on this frequency the planet gets to.
Right.
Yes, it is sad, and it's you know, for the individual who is of a higher frequency and is evolving, then it is a great sorrow. But we have to love them and leave them, because that's where they are on their evolutionary process. But also note that there's an awful lot of individuals on the Earth right now that aren't specifically of a higher evolutionary progress, or even a higher frequency. They're here to fill the gaps in. Because we're moving onwards and upwards, we need to have a critical mass of individuals who are of a higher frequency to allow the whole Earth to be affected by a triangulation process, where those who are of a higher frequency affect those in an area in between them of a lower frequency, but are nevertheless susceptible or ripe to being increased in frequency, to actually increase in frequency and therefore rise and evolve with us. So when we get this critical mass of individuals that create the triangulation effect, those who are meant to go up, those who are on an upwards evolutionary process, will move up. But there still needs to be if you like, a population on the Earth that allows us to achieve this mass of individuals, because otherwise it won't work. Now, a way of explaining this is that we can blow a balloon up only to the point where the elastic limit is reached, and then when the elastic limit is reached and we try and increase the pressure inside the balloon breaks. But if the objective is to blow the balloon up to a state where it is many times bigger than it is, and take it past its elastic limit, then we need to fill up the gaps of where the breaks may occur. So the way we do that is to, if we were using another example of using the plaster on our walls, where the plaster on our walls cracks, for instance, in our homes, we don't use plaster, we use polyfiller or something else to bridge the gap. Right. It's not the same material, but it does the job. So in what we're finding out now, what we're starting to understand now, is there's a lot of incarnate individuals on the Earth that aren't specifically of the humankind energy. Right. They're of a lower frequency than humankind, as it were. Well, humankind.
Let's pick up on that. We're at the top of the hour here. I need to take a quick break here, but we'll come back in about 5 minutes. Guys, 32 Degrees of Insanity with my special guest, Guy Needler, along with my very quiet co-host, Chris Gio. Chris, are you still there? Chris is not. He's probably out helping with Cherie, but we'll bring him back on in a second. But we'll be back here in a few moments here. If you guys...
Oh, hey, Donny.
Oh, there you are.
I'm sorry, I had my Skype muted. You know, when Guy speaks, you just sit back and just listen.
Oh, I know. That's all I did. I was just sitting there. I'm like, wow. So we will be back here in about 5 minutes, guys, right here at 32 Degrees of Insanity. If you're listening to us on Blog Talk Radio, please come on over to freedomizerradio.com. You can join us at the Chitango website as well and chat with us right here on freedomizerradio.com. We'll be back in a few minutes.
You know the Constitution like the back of your hand. You've read books, listened to podcasts, attended lectures, surfed websites, and watched videos. You've made liberty your life's goal, but something seems to be missing. Stickers from LibertyStickers.com. Exercise your freedom of speech with the world's most dangerous bumper stickers. That's LibertyStickers.com. But wait, there's more. You can buy Liberty Stickers wholesale. Get them for 99 cents each when you put 100 or more in your shopping cart in any combination. Sell them or give them away. They're great for gun shows, flea markets, fairs, outreach, and more. Earn extra money, promote freedom, and spread the word. Need custom stickers, labels, or decals for your organization or business? Liberty Stickers makes them. Go to LibertyStickers.com to order or call 877-873-9626. LibertyStickers.com, the world's most dangerous stickers.
What's up with these sorry politicians? Lots of bark. When it's showtime, whimpering like little shih tzus. You want big cuts. Ron Paul's been screaming it for years. Budget crisis? No problem. Cut $1 trillion year one. That's trillion with a T. Department of Education? Gone. Interior, Energy, HUD, Commerce? Gone. Later, bureaucrats. That's how Ron Paul rolls. Want to drain the swamp? Ron Paul. Do it.
I'm Ron Paul, and I approve this message.
This is Mercy. If you're listening to this message, warriors, you are the resistance. Warriors, you are not alone. There are pockets of resistance all around the planet. We are at the brink. Read about it in The Sovereign, newspaper of the resistance. Available now at newsstands everywhere. The Sovereign is a monthly 24-page tabloid newspaper featuring incendiary content about life during wartime in the age of Obama. Warriors, keep to date every month. Remember to read The Sovereign, newspaper of the resistance. Available at newsstands everywhere. This alert is for all you boppers out there in the big city, all you street people with an ear for the action. This is Mercy. If you're listening to this message, warriors, you are the resistance. This is Mercy. Mine will be the last voice you will ever hear. Don't be alarmed.
Greetings, this is Blake the Eccentric, and I want to invite you to check out my new show on Freedomizer Radio, The Eccentric Perspective. It's sort of a red pill, blue pill, going down the rabbit hole kind of show, featuring outside-the-box politics, philosophy, and gonzo journalism. But be warned, with knowledge comes responsibility, and you might not see the world the same way again, as I will attempt to open your mind, speak to your common sense, and challenge your critical thinking skills. So please join me Monday, Wednesday, and Thursday from noon to 1:30 Pacific Time. Once again, that's Eccentric Perspective, only on Freedomizer Radio.
The Purple Shift is Christ Consciousness Awakening. The Purple Shift is news about Mother Earth, cosmic sky, and you.
Open up and expand themselves. My goodness, let's get back 100 years to the thinking that was going on then. Where would we be if people didn't expand themselves?
The Purple Shift is hosted by spiritual warrior Pathos Sages. Join her Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays at 10 a.m. Pacific Time, noon Central, only on freedomizerradio.com.
Ay, 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 la chupacabra, ¿por qué?
Are you tired of losing your herd of goats to the chupacabra? Are you worried about how you're going to eat because your goats were viciously ravaged? Call SNL Chupacabra Insurance today. SNL provides fast, speedy claims in the event of your goat farm being destroyed. Low rates, fast service, and professional attitude is what makes SNL your choice for Chupacabra Insurance. Call 855-CHUPA-NO today. 855-CHUPA-NO for a free rate quote. SNL Chupacabra Insurance, just in case the Chupacabra comes.
Ay, 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 la chupacabra.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to 32 Degrees of Insanity. We're speaking with Guy Needler. Donny Gillson, of course, is in the background. And Guy, I completely agree with you when it comes to the idea that some of us are just here just to be the beacons of the light, as opposed to trying to save everybody or be in a collective consciousness or collective community. I've likened it to, and I know this sounds kind of cheesy, Cherie's always told me that this is kind of cheesy, but I've likened it to a water filter. And we're basically water, is what we are. And as we pass through this filter, which is planet Earth, we have to do so individually. We can't all go through it once, because if we do, we're just going to contaminate each other. But once we get to the other side, then we can join the pure collective consciousness.
And I had myself on mute for some odd. Vicki said something to me about, looks like we're having some tremors here in Nevada, and some tremors that are happening right in the Truckee area of California. So I didn't even realize that so I was sorry about that. I apologize. Thank you for filling in there, Chris, as we came in off a commercial there. You were talking about, what were you talking about there, Chris? I missed that.
Well, we were talking about basically how some of us are here to be the beacons of light. And all we can really do, in my opinion, is just prepare the lifeboats. I mean, we can't save everybody. Not everybody is meant to be saved. Not everybody is meant to ascend into a higher dimension or a higher understanding. Some people are here just simply so they can experience the failure, the materialism, and the negative aspects of what this world has to offer. And what we can do is just shine that light for others to see the light and find a beacon of freedom and hope and higher consciousness, and just simply lead by example by living our day-to-day lives in complete, infinite love.
Well, that's interesting that you state that, because I was just reflecting back on this. I channeled a thing called The Message back in 2002, and this is the things that I'm reading to you are a part of that channeling exercise that I did through automatic writing back in 2002. And I wanted to read this other aspect of it here to you. It's just a couple quick paragraphs here, and I wanted to get your take on it because I think it matches up exactly to what Chris said. Many of you are already feeling and noticing in your physical and emotional bodies the effects that are taking place at a cellular and genetic level. Many of you are experiencing physical symptoms you have had before, such as headaches, heart pains, palpitations, chronic fatigue, dizziness, nausea, changing sleep patterns, ringing in your ears, blurry of the vision, and much more. You're also noticing changes in your emotional state. Your bodies are evolving and cleansing themselves. All outmoded, worn out, negative emotions and ways of thinking and perceiving things are coming to the surface to be examined, purified, and transformed. Many of you are emotionally confused, and many of you feel you are sick. I tell you this is only temporary. Just hang in there and remain in the frequency of love for yourself and others. It too will pass. Now is the time for you to let go of all your fears and negative patterns, because you simply cannot take them with you. Where we are going, there will be only love. There will be no room for fears or negativity of any kind. What you do at the entrance of the porthole of the fifth dimension is, if you still have your baggage of fears and negativity with you, they will not be allowed. The vibrations of fear and other negative patterns simply cannot be admitted into the fifth dimension. Will you choose to stay behind on the third dimensional level for another round of incarnations just because you hold on to them? Do you want to carry them with you all the way through the 12 vortices to the portal, only to be told your baggage of negativity cannot come along with you? Or do you want to start working on getting rid of it now and freeing yourself from this limiting burden where there's still a little bit of time left?
You know, I completely agree with that, and I absolutely, positively do not want to return to this plane of existence. This is my last ride. I came here for some reason, obviously, but I don't have any intention of coming back at all.
Guy, what are your thoughts on that, on those couple paragraphs?
I think it's absolutely spot on, to be honest. I've personally experienced a lot of those physical aspects, and I know a lot of other people who also experience that as well. The thing is that the human body, the physical human body, right now is designed to exist in a lower frequency environment. So when it needs to cope with a higher frequency environment, it needs to be changed in some way to do that. It needs to lose its density, and as a result of that, the body is being changed at a subcellular level, even lower than DNA, at a basic frequency level, to allow it to exist in a frequency, a base frequency that is above those three levels that it's designed to work with. So all of these feelings of pains in the joints and the muscles, tinnitus, headaches, dizziness, palpitations, that so-called fit, healthy, energetic individuals are experiencing, but who are nevertheless spiritual, is because their bodies are responding to the need to rise to the frequencies. Now, and this is a bit controversial now, I'm about to say, not everybody's body is capable of doing that. So some individuals may well have to exit this incarnation because of that. Now, some of the bodies will get cancers, they'll get diseases, they'll get viruses, and they'll die off as a result of it because they can't cope with the frequency change. And this is what's happening right now. You notice that there's an awful lot of individuals, and you might notice it with people around you, who are becoming ill early in life or getting cancers and other diseases with certain individual types or body types are becoming more and more prevalent. And that's because their particular vehicle can't cope with the frequency range, and so therefore they've agreed that they'll have to go. This is an energetic agreement within their higher frequency that they normally exist within, and that therefore their body will naturally cease to function as a result of that. So yeah, I mean, all of those symptoms, if you want to call them symptoms, are physical proof that your body is moving up the frequencies, and that you will be taking it with you as we go up the higher frequencies, but nevertheless will remain in a physical aspect.
Well, the one thing that I've always said, is, and a lot of people are, I've been kind of tossing back to our show tonight where we have you on, and of course we had a gentleman named Terrell03 who is on one of my colleagues, Clyde Lewis's show tonight on Ground Zero. And one of the reasons why I wanted you on so specifically today was that we could raise this frequency to avoid having any type of cataclysm, and that keep people in a positive thinking of not thinking about an earthquake or some sort of cataclysm to happen on our planet, because that would lower the vibrational levels of this planet. But what I found very odd to see is as we do, and of course nothing has happened as of yet because the prediction has passed the time, so I think we're doing a great job. But when I see, other people still talking about lower vibrational things, it like they're talking about, we should have an earthquake, or we have to, because these predictions need to come true, blah blah blah. I don't believe that is true. I believe God is the one who's in control of this, and I believe God, as you said earlier, we are ascending. We are ascending at a rapid rate, and I think we're going down the right path, and that we are winning. And I think these last couple of days was a little bit of a wake-up call, just to say, hey, I'm still here, Gaia's still here, and and just wake up a little bit, and let's move on. What do you think?
I think that there is a potential for a collective consciousness to affect that, which is negative in a negative way, certainly. And I think that the need to work together as a result of a specific supposed natural phenomena is also one way of affecting the wake-up. I'll give you an example of the earthquake that happened in Japan last year, and the resulting tsunami, and the effect it had on the nuclear power station in Fukushima. The world population, or those who were of a higher frequency, sent waves of emotion and love and concern to that area. And as a result of that, Japan recovered really quite quickly.
Yeah, it did.
And this is what's going on. Sometimes we need to have something to focus on to make us achieve those higher thought processes that are associated with higher frequencies. So, in essence, we collectively can create a so-called natural disaster to act as
like a beacon, like a satellite.
A focal point. Yeah, a focal point for us to focus on as a collective, which creates this global triangulation effect, where we're all thinking about the same thing at the same time. So, as a result of that, if we're all thinking about the same thing at the same time, and it's all high frequency thinking, then we affect change for the good. Change for a higher frequency response much faster than we would do if we didn't do anything about it, or we were spasmodic or irregular or random in our thoughts in that specific direction.
It just, to me, it's, it's like, I just see, and it just, as I said earlier, it does sadden me, because I think do you think this is going to happen quickly, or do you think it's going to happen 5 years down the line? Do you think it's going to happen within our lifetime, or are we just planting the seed of remembrance, and that as the children, because as we, you talked a little bit about that awakening has been happening for some time. Some of the theories are that the first indigo children came to this earth in the early 50s. Were born in the early 50s. They were the first wave, and then of course in the 60s during the love, that's the next step of the indigo children, and then of course the generations after that, and the new generation of children that are on this earth, are very in tune to the source. I mean, it blows me away, some of these kids that, especially autistic children and kids with Asperger's syndrome, how connected they are with the universe. It blows me away. And they always tell me whenever I talk to those children, they're like, "Don't worry, Donny, it's all good. The universe is all fine."
Yeah, I mean that's right. We will move individually, but where we can affect those who are also susceptible to being awakened, they will move with us as well as a result of being associated with us. So all of these children, who are, some of them are higher evolved entities not from the same energy as humankind, are here to help the collective that is incarnate currently on Earth, that we call mankind, or humankind, to evolve in a much faster pace. Now, it's interesting you talk about the different children, the crystal children, rainbow children, and the indigo children, because they have been planted here. They've asked to come here to provide those higher frequencies, simply by just being here. Now, some of them are already in contact with those facilities or faculties that are associated with higher frequency existence. So we talk about the autistic children who simply just know stuff.
Yeah.
And it's accurate. The example with Rain Man, where the box of matches gets dropped to the ground and all the matches go across the floor, and he says, I don't know what the exact figure was, but he said, there's 213 there. And there's 213 there. It's because they're able to access that part of us which is still in the energetic, and work with that instantaneous knowing or knowledge, that cosmic knowledge, that's part of us. And these children the physical vehicles that are these children are containing energetic individuals who are of a higher frequency, who are of a higher evolutionary content, and they are here to, if you like, kickstart the awakening process in the rest of us, simply by just being here. One of the problems with the latest set of children is, though, that some of them are becoming sort of irrational. They have temper problems. They have mood swings, and that's because they're not used to these lower frequencies. Simply that, and they find it abhorrent. On top of that,
it's not natural for them.
Yeah, it's not natural. And on top of that, they're using communication mediums that nobody else is using. Well, specifically those that they find around them, until they get in contact with the children of their own type, where they start to communicate on multiple levels and multiple modes concurrently, and then they start to calm down and become reasonable individuals again. If you imagine that you're trying to talk to somebody who is deaf and is blind, so he can't hear you or see your lips moving, and you can't make yourself known to them, you would definitely get frustrated. But when you start to realise that if you use the touch sign language that some of these individuals have to use, that's the only way you've got to communicate with this other individual, then you start to get a response back. And you say, okay, that works. But in reality, they're missing out on so much communication because most individuals around them are not on that same frequency and therefore aren't able to access those levels of communication. That they just get frustrated with it all. And nobody's listening to me, nobody understands me, nobody wants me to talk to them, nobody's with me. All these sort of words come out from them because, quite frankly, they're talking to the deaf, dumb, and blind. And what's more, they're in the equivalent of being underwater, where they're in a lower frequency, and they're used to a high frequency. They're used to being in the air. They're used to being in a high frequency.
Mm-hmm. Well, one thing I have a very dear friend. His son is autistic, and whenever I speak to him, and it's him and I have a very special bond, and I've had special bonds with a lot of autistic children. They won't communicate with their father. They have this disconnect. But whenever I talk to these children, it's like I have such a close connection to them, where you'll see them hyperactive and way out of base, but when I come over to them and start talking to them, they become rational, and they actually sound like almost like a 21-year-old or 22-year-old individual. Mm-hmm. They have such high intelligence, and it humbles me that I'm able to be in that frequency with them. It really does humble me.
Mm.
Can I jump in for a second, Donny?
Yeah, go ahead.
I want to switch the topic just briefly, because we've been experiencing a pretty weird phenomenon, and I was wondering if maybe Guy could shed some light on this.
Sure.
For the past couple of days, we've noticed a lot of, I hate to use the word demonic, but for lack of a better term, demonic energies which have surfaced. We recently did a show with Christopher Everard where we discussed exorcisms and demonic possession in great detail. During the broadcast, we kept hearing all of this weird static. Now, I use top-of-the-end gear over here. There's absolutely no reason why I should have any static in my chain. But as soon as we got on this topic, we started hearing this weird noise. It's on the archive, this weird static, and it was coming in almost as a growling. And we've noticed this happening ever since.
Like an EVP of some sort, right?
Yes, exactly. And Cherie was making the phone call earlier, and she heard this demonic growling voice. It seemed like frustration. And from my meditation, what I'm getting out of the situation is that this dark force is frustrated because it can't touch us. I know it sounds weird, but that's the energies that I'm picking up. However, it's still making itself known to us. Is there any advice that you can give us, or anybody who's dealing with similar situations, to expel these kind of dark entities? Or is it a situation where these dark entities don't even exist, and it's just something that we've conjured in our own minds because of the content of the show? That's a pretty big question, isn't it?
It's a good question. Yeah,
good question.
And I had a good response for that. It's all to do with the karmic forces. Now let me explain. Karma is not specifically about doing good or bad. It's about attraction to the sensation of being in the physical. And that includes things like wanting to have nice watches, wanting to have nice cars, nice houses, nice girlfriends, etc. It's about being linked into the physical and thinking that the physical is all that there is. Now this creates an energy in its own right. So all of those individuals who are stuck in the physical, they are totally and utterly believing or in full understanding that the physical is all there is. They're not interested in anything else. All they're interested in is whether they can go out and have a big fat meal, for instance, and get loads of money from the work they're doing, or who they can turn over to get more money, and where they can wear their gold bracelets or their Armani suits. Yeah, these individuals create, if you like, a negative triangulation, if you want to call this negative triangulation effect, where those around them of like mind are also stick together and group together, and that creates local areas of low frequency. So what's actually happening is, and I have this fantastic image in my mind while you're all saying this, is that oil and water doesn't mix. And if you consider that the oil is the lower frequency aspect of what's happening on the Earth, and the water is where we are, then the oil rises to the surface, it pops out. It can't stay there. So, because it's used to being part of the whole that is the water, it doesn't like being on the surface. So it's like resisting this change of being moved away from the rest of the collective, if you want to call it that, the whole that is incarnates mankind and all of the other entities which are incarnate right now to help with the ascension and the Earth. And so therefore there's a discomfort that's felt by these individuals and with the energies associated with and linking these individuals together. So when we do a radio station, the source is coming through now, when we do a radio station that is of higher frequency and we affect so many people that they are all increasing in their frequency, those that are of lower frequency and not interested in the aspects of higher frequency thought processes are also affected in some way. The higher frequencies, as we talked about with the children, the rainbow, the indigo and the crystal children, are in an inverse condition in this instance. They are in a lower frequency and they find it abhorrent, and therefore it's uncomfortable for them. And this is the same for those individuals who are associated with the lower frequencies. They find themselves suddenly in a higher frequency environment, and the triangulated frequencies that are associated with them and their like-minded individuals also find itself in a area of higher frequency. And so there is a resistance that is set up between the high frequency and the lower frequency, and the lower frequency is ejected from the higher frequency because it is not required. If it can change, it will be changed and will be dragged up through the triangulation effect of positive frequencies. But if it cannot be changed because those individuals who create this negative triangulation effect are not of that evolutionary content, or do not consider themselves to be interested or concerned with such aspects of the higher reality, then they will be ejected. But the frequency response between the two frequencies is such that it calls a resistance and discontent, disconcern and uncomfortableness. So the individuals around you who are not of this frequency, you will notice that they will get angry with you for no apparent reason. They may even pick fights or arguments with you for no apparent reason. They will call you different names that are of a derogatory manner. They may even want to swing a punch at you for no reason whatsoever. And this is a physical response to this. But in an energetic response, you will gain certain phenomena, such as the aspect of resistance and feedback you have experienced on your telecommunications systems. But also note that in times of higher frequency, you may also get a response back from your telecommunications systems that are of a positive aspect. Note that the resonance of the frequencies that are associated with the origin, that which created myself, are of a higher frequency than me, and therefore permeate that which is itself and its creations and those which I created. You may know it as the frequency that certain spiritual individuals chant when in meditation to raise their frequencies to the background of the greater multiverse that is the absolute, the origin, the all that is. This is part of the resonant frequency of the original manifestation or the original material, and is therefore sometimes also picked up as a result of this. This sound may be recognized as being like the rushing of water in a waterfall or the sound of a distant sea roaring. If you hear this sound in your ears, naturally or with your telecommunications system, know that you are invoking the higher frequencies of the wider multiverse aspect, not specifically those negative frequencies which you will be thinking may also be affecting this situation.
That makes absolutely perfect sense.
Yeah.
The karma that we created by doing that show and entertaining those topics is coming back to us now. Yes.
Yes. I mean, see, karma is also positive.
Right.
When we associate ourselves with higher thoughts and with higher frequency aspects of ourselves, we create a karmic link to the higher frequencies. The word karma is something which is greatly misunderstood and is associated only with that of the negative, that which is of the physical. But karma is also something which is associated with the evolutionary progression, the rising through the frequencies of that which is evolving. So the individual entity who is evolving will also have karma, that karma being the link and the desire to be of a higher frequency. Whereas with the human aspect, we think of karma as being doing bad deeds and having to repay those bad deeds, but in actuality the negative karma is to do with the association with the physical. The trick of being incarnate is to be in the physical and work with the physical, but not be of the physical. The yogis of past centuries stated that they needed to be divorced from the physical, to renounce the physical in some way, shape or form, and others of them would do strange physical yogic tasks to show that they are renounced from the physical whilst being in the physical. But the true master can exist within the physical, work with the physical, with all aspects of the physical around them, but still be within the higher energetic realms and therefore not attract karma. True masters are able to do this, and it is a wonder to behold when you see them doing it. They also attract this, as I said, just this positive karma, this karma where everything that they do is good, everything that they associate it with is with the higher frequency aspect, and therefore they get pulled into the higher frequencies on a regular basis, if not on a continual basis. And it is this link with the higher frequencies, this karma with the higher frequencies, which makes them able to exist within the lower frequencies, work with the lower frequencies without being of the lower frequencies. I will give you an example of that which is of the physical, which will give you an example of a higher frequency aspect which exists in lower frequencies. When your submariners go in a submarine, they are creating a higher frequency environment, that of air, to allow them to exist within the lower frequency, that of water. So therefore they move in the lower frequencies and work with the lower frequencies whilst maintaining a higher frequency aspect of themselves, i.e. being in the air. And the construct of the submarine is that which allows them to do that. The advanced individual can create a field of energy around themselves that allows them to do exactly the same as the submarine, but within the physical environment of the air. But the energetic content is such that they are of a higher frequency and recognize that they are existing within a lower frequency aspect from an incarnate perspective, but are not affected by that of the physical. They simply move with it, within and without it, and do not get attracted to it in any way, shape or form.
You know, one of the things that, you know, last night, and this kind of goes along with what Chris was talking about, I had not astral projected in a long time, and I found myself last evening, while in my dream state, being presented with my good friend Brady Ackland, who had passed away back in 1995, and it was like he was alive and well, and we were playing games, we were sitting around talking. It was like it was so surreal for me. And then all of a sudden, during this dream, I saw like this black entity come. It was almost like a cloud, like a shadow, come over the whole dream, and it almost engulfed it. And I woke up in just sweats. It was terrifying.
Wow.
Yes. Now, your description there is quite typical of people who are contacting spiritual entities who they've had a physical relationship with, and you've had to meet that entity on a frequency that is above the physical. Popularly, they call the astral levels, but it's the frequencies above level 3, so it's level 4, 5, 6, and 7, and upwards. But in your instance, you were in the joy that you were experiencing with that individual that you were so pleased to be with. He had come down the frequencies to meet you and become in the semi-physical momentarily, expending great energy to do so. And you had risen up through the frequencies with your ability to move your energetic out of the physical to meet him. This had caused a rift in the basic frequency that is surrounding you in your area of location, your physical area of location, where there is a specific negative aspect. This negative aspect was not in resonance with the frequencies that were created with your joy in meeting your friend, and as a result it tried to quell the higher frequencies by surrounding it in its negativity.
Well, here's the weird thing, and I just want to interject this real quick because I think it's a very important part of it. Brady committed suicide, and I was the one who found him, and so that was. Do you think he was in that same realm as this entity?
The blackness was not an entity as such, but was more a lower frequency aspect that associated with the area of your locale. He's committing suicide is not an optimal way to leave the human body.
Right.
In fact, it is a if you want to call it a sin, it's a sin.
Okay.
Because the human body is a gift that we're given to allow us to move forward in our evolutionary process by experiencing the physical with a physical vehicle, and they are in short supply, significantly short supply. There are many queues of people, of entities queuing up to become incarnate and experience the rapid evolutionary opportunity that is presented to us whilst being in the physical. The aspect of negativity that was in your area wanted to quell this, but also it fed upon the negativity that surrounds the suicide opportunity that people take sometimes. Because suicide is considered to be negative, there is a draw to that was the door that this negative energy needed to come into to stop this local rise in higher frequency. So your friend who was causing you great joy and therefore causing you to raise the local area of your where you were, your existence, in your home, in your bed, you raised the local area of frequency around you and around your locale, your neighborhood, to a point where the negative frequencies that were in that area felt uncomfortable with it. Now, your friend's suicide is a negative aspect,
right?
And although, well, lower frequency aspect, a better way of saying it, and although you were in deep joy by experiencing the energetic communication with your friend, this negative aspect that was there was the chink in the armor that the lower frequencies needed to reduce the base frequency back down to its previous condition. So, if you like, it was a key in the door that was there to allow the negative frequencies to open that door and bring the base frequency back down to something like that which it could tolerate. Does that make sense?
Yeah. No, completely.
Yeah.
Because I mean, I was literally, when I woke up, I could. It was like a blissful. I mean, I had not felt a dream like that, and I could smell it, I could feel it, I could feel the joy, and then when this, I mean, I could literally vividly see this black. It's like almost like charcoal, almost peeling down, and mud, almost muddy, and it just was just eerie. And all of a sudden I wake up and I'm in sweats and I'm a bit terrified, but also I could remember the joyfulness as well.
Yes, and that's a good feeling about how you recognise the lower frequency, because it feels like it's sticky, it's muddy, it's thick, it's horrible, it's like tar. You know, those are the sorts of feelings that we get when we're accessing frequencies that are lower than ourselves, or those frequencies that are lower than ourselves are trying to lower our base frequency so that the overall base frequency is back down to a tolerable condition.
Mm-hmm.
If you imagine that it's the other way around, then there was an area of lower frequency that was susceptible to being raised upwards, and then a huge cloud of higher frequency came over, then any positive aspects within that lower frequency, any individual thoughts that suggested that there might be a greater reality out there rather than just the physical, would be again the chink in the armor, or the key to the door, that would allow the higher frequency aspect to come in and raise that which is lower higher. And it's just the same thing but in reverse. So yeah, I mean, effectively you created quite a high area of local frequency that was upsetting to the general general area of lower frequency, to the point where it had to try and stabilize that lower.
Oh, it was like I felt happy again. You know, I felt like there was no negativity. It was love. It was me and my buddy hanging out, and I could see all my old friends. You know, we were all. You know, it was almost like we were teenagers again. It was like that inner childness again. And I think I know you're correct. Is that was the that negative energy didn't like that. It was like, I'm not going to let you play in that playground. You know. And of course, woke me up out of the. But I was thinking about that today. With all this, all this talk about earthquakes, and I want to switch gears a little bit and ask the source a little bit about one, where Yeshua fits into all of this, and also the thoughts on this celestial object called Nibiru. Is it real? Is it a lower vibrational planet, or is it a higher vibrational planet, or is it in the 5th, or is it in the 12th dimension? Is it something that we cannot see in this universe, but it resides within the multiverse?
Okay. The aspects of the local density that you call Nibiru planet is such that it is difficult to relay to you. I will explain further. There are many thought processes that are put into the minds of men to make them conceive the possibility of ascension, and there are goals that are put in place to achieve this. The thought of a nirvana, for instance, is one such goal. The thought of heaven is another such goal. The aspect of ascension is around us consistently, and the opportunity to move forwards is consistent as well. The objective of moving from one locale to another locale is something that mankind will do. The need to coalesce around an area of local density, such as a planet, is not specifically necessary the higher up the frequencies one travels, and so the need to focus on a specific planet as being an area where we will ascend to is not a thought process that should be concentrated on. Although for those individuals who are on their spiritual path for the first time, and they may be stepping up the ladder at the first rung, then the knowledge of a locale which is going to be of higher frequency for mankind to move to, or the individual to move to, is an attractive thought and a useful thought process to use for them to move their thoughts from the lower frequency aspect of the physical to that which is of the higher energetic function. So, in essence, the planet that's been talked about, Nibiru being on a higher frequency, is but a useful conveyance to use for inviting individuals to think about the higher thoughts that are necessary to activate their awakening process. Individuals such as Joshua are merely a guide along the way to these thought processes. There have been many during the history of the earth, and as such you will know them as the Christ, the Buddha, and the Muhammad, and the Babaji. There are many of them, including many great yogis and sages in India who have travelled around the world to give mankind the processes and procedures to gain those higher thought processes and access those higher frequencies. In the time we call the middle 1950s, there were many opportunities for doing this, but many of them were of a physical nature, to activate the higher frequencies through body movement, for instance. These individuals used the term of yoga to describe this, and the higher frequencies were established through the concentration needed to enact the physical movements and postures that were associated with those physical movements. The physical movements enacted an energetic response from the chakras, which in turn respected the opportunity to activate parts of the chakras that are associated with higher frequencies than that in the physical. So there are many sages, many masters, many individuals on the planet who over the years have been there to guide mankind forwards, and have offered many different mental vehicles for them to use to move forwards in their thought processes, and this is merely just one of them. Mankind is going to be of a condition soon where he will not need the basic nomenclature that is currently being used, for the higher aspect will be starting to be understood. This is an important move forwards, for as mankind becomes more awake and aware, those thought processes which are needed to make that awareness become live are no longer necessary. They will be out of date, so to speak. Consider them like using a computer in the 1960s compared to using a computer in the current day. The necessary function is slow and clunky, whereas today it is relatively fast and concise and in more detail. The aspect of functionality is also greater, significantly greater, and the size is reduced as a result of technology. This is also the same for the spiritual understanding, for as we gain higher awareness, we also have aspects of ourselves which are able to understand that which is of a higher frequency content. So the use of such words are useful, but consider this: there are many other more detailed explanations that can be accessed when one is exposed to the higher frequencies and allows themselves to be exposed to the higher frequencies.
Now, there was I don't know if you're familiar with the Urantia book. Are you familiar with that?
No, I'm not actually, no.
The Urantia book was a book that appeared sometime in the mid-early 1920s, and it basically describes the makings of the universe. Basically talks about Yeshua's life, but the missing years of his life, and it also talks about kind of how the universe, same kind of stuff that you're talking about, but the actual author of the book is unknown. Nobody knows about it. It kind of mysteriously came into existence. And there is a part in there, and we were talking about negative entities. There was a part in there, it's called the Lucifer Dialogues. And it talks about Lucifer and Satan themselves being two separate entities. And that Lucifer is the architect, you could say, of this known universe that we live in, and Satan, of course, is a lieutenant of that, which is the ruler or the person that is overlooking the earth and keeping it, the density down, the third dimensions down within the earth. And of course, Lucifer itself would be in charge of the outer system. What are your thoughts on that as far as the source is concerned, past the multiverse, past into the light verse, maybe even past the 12th dimension, or the isness of whom ourselves are?
Well, the description of the multiverse as I've received it from the source is something that I found out later, very common to old yogic scripts of spotted from individual yogis from about, let's say, about 100 years ago, who've written books that I've just managed to get that and I'm quite surprised at the level of detail and how close it is to my own channel works, because I've never read these books before, and certainly didn't access them whilst I was doing my own channeling. So it's a joy to spot that the overall picture was known by certain individuals of higher frequency in the past. Now, in terms of the two, I'll use the word entities rather than negative entities or Satan or Lucifer. He talks about them being two, but actually the entity that was involved with the creation of mankind and the giving mankind, or energetic mankind, incarnate total free will, was in full knowledge of the possibility that we could slip down the frequencies as a result of that, with our infatuation with the sensation aspect of the physical, and therefore the attraction to the lower frequencies, and as a result of that our sliding down to the lower frequencies. So in terms of the comment about Lucifer being, if you like, the manufacturer of the physical universe, yes, loosely, that entity could be, but actually Satan and Lucifer are one and the same. They're two aspects of the same entity.
Okay.
So if you consider ourselves as being a huge entity, sometimes we have aspects of ourselves that we split off to do various different jobs concurrently. And right now, for instance, both you, Chris, and you, Don, may well be experiencing another existence elsewhere within the multiverse. Perhaps even up to 12 different existences concurrently as a result of your higher energetic self wanting to do that. Now, why I said Lucifer could be classified as saying creating the physical universe is because it allowed the opportunity for mankind to have free will, and therefore, of its own volition, be attracted to the lower frequencies. So as a result of their attraction to lower frequencies, we create a lower frequency environment around us. And that lower frequency we created was the lower frequency aspect of the Earth and the lower frequency aspect of the universe that we exist within. So although we didn't that's right, although Lucifer or Satan or the devil didn't actually physically create it itself, it initiated the opportunity for its creation. That being giving us free will and knowing that the possibility of that we could slide down the frequencies as a result of being attracted to the physical. But on the other side, it also knew that we could rise up significantly to the frequencies by also taking free will. And actually, this is what's going on now. We've bounced on the bottom and we're coming up the other side. So does that make sense there? Because
no, I got it. What are your thoughts, Chris, on that? Chris is muted.
I'm just sitting back and just listening.
Enjoying, in awe.
Yes.
Isn't this great? This is. I am so glad, Chris, that you have introduced me to Guy. This is just. This is awesome. Guy, I have been sitting down and reading some excerpts of your book, and when I just looked through the table of contents, I'm like, wow, this is like all the stuff I love to learn about.
Well, it's amazing that Guy said this, because I've always felt that my dreams were actually a glimpse into a parallel universe or existence somewhere else, because some of the events just seem so real and so detailed. Some of them don't make any sense whatsoever. I chalk those up to my mind just scattering images, or there's certain events that happened in my life recently, then they'll affect my dreams. So I make a separation between the two, but there are some which the reality just seems so real that I wake up questioning which one was realer.
Oh, I got to tell you a guy this story. I might have told you this story, Chris, once before, but my father, who recently passed away in October, and my dad came over to me last summer, and he ran to me. He's like, what the heck were you doing downtown Minneapolis, getting out of a limousine in an Armani suit with a briefcase, walking into the IDS, which is the largest skyscraper in Minneapolis, walking to the IDS. I screamed out to you, looked at me, you laughed at me, and then you walked in. And I was like, what are you talking about? And he's like, I saw you. It was you. It was nobody else but you. But you looked like $1 million. And I'm like, I have no clue what you're talking about, Dad. But I have no clue. And then I started thinking, as you were saying that, and I've thought about this before. Could my dad have maybe walked through another, skipped into another dimension real quick and might have saw another me?
Well, yes. There's because of what's going on in the world right now in terms of higher frequency rises. We're getting pockets of local higher frequency, and what could have happened with your father is he could have moved into a pocket of local high frequency. Now, in pockets of local high frequency, the rules that we call the rules of the universe no longer they start to break down, basically. So what he would have done is unwittingly have moved into an event space that included yourself in a different time zone, if you want to call it that, or event space itself.
Right.
And he will have seen you as a different you. There's two explanations for this, but this is one of the explanations. He would have seen you in a different event space. Now, his frustration with not being able to make you see him will have made him angry, would have lowered his frequency, and therefore lowered the overall base frequency of that area, and therefore that would have closed down. And all of a sudden he would have said, "Oh, you just suddenly disappeared," or you'd have thought you'd have gone to the building, for instance.
Right.
And that's what happens sometimes. You would have seen, and there's another potential that it's not ringing true now, because I've been logging into you. This is what's happened. He's seen another aspect of you in a different time zone, as it were. But there are things called co-location, where that higher energetic aspect of ourselves that is incarnate, as it were, can also create another physical vehicle concurrently with that which we predominantly use. to affect certain things that will benefit the first physical vehicle, if you want to call it that. So co-location is where the energetic decides it wants to affect a few things a bit faster in the evolutionary process, and to do that it may create another physical vehicle that's exactly the same, but for a short period of time, that would allow it to affect certain things that will affect the first physical vehicle in a positive way later on down the line. If you like, it's like closing a few roads off and making sure that you get on the main road all the time.
Well, what I found quite interesting about that, we're at the top of the hour here. We're going to roll into a breaker real quick, and we're also going to, we've got some callers as well that would like to call in. I see a 914 and a 440, and some other callers that like to call in. If you'd like to call in at the top of the hour here, we're going to accept some calls, 347-324-3704. But the interesting thing that I mean, he came to me at a frantic. He was like, I could see like what, he was like, this was truth to him, and he he was almost like freaked out about it, because he was like, I see you here now physically, but what I saw there was a different Donny, and he started having a lot of these type of episodes over the course of the summer, this last summer, and then of course he passed away here in October of a major heart attack. Do you think maybe he was being called? I mean, that he somehow was tapping into that multiverse, that because of the time was drawing near?
When people start to get close to the end of their physical incarnation, they start to detach. The energetic starts to detach from the physical, and as a result of that, there is an aspect of them which starts to become more aware of the higher frequency energetic. So your father, although in physicality he would not have been aware of his mortality, as it were, or his time for departure,
right,
his energetic side would have been moving away from the physical, which would have meant that he would have been exposed as a physical, that part of him which was focusing on the physical would have been exposed to higher frequencies, and therefore he would have been, able to see pockets of, or able to invoke pockets of that event space where you were, for instance. I mean, he probably wouldn't even have realised that it was that there would have been a time gap or something. He would have been accessing that which is, let's say the words, in the future, for instance.
Mm-hmm.
Specifically because he's experiencing higher frequency content as a result of his eventual passing from the physical back into the energetic.
Now you said something about the future. Could he have saw a future event?
Yes, absolutely. That's what's coming to my mind, is that he, for some reason, he needed to see that which you will become later, if you understand that. And it was because he was departing before you become that which you will become, he was feeling disappointment in not being there with you and for you, and to take joy in your progression. So he was being given a few gifts along the way, because he was being pulled up the frequencies as a result of the energetic departing the physical, and therefore being exposed to the higher energies, and therefore being allowed to see these different things. He was being given a few gifts of seeing Donny in different scenarios or different aspects of your future existence. So he was dropping into different event spaces where those event spaces are down the road from this current event space.
Just as you said that, I had this, excuse me, just as you said that, I had an overwhelming sense of, like his hand reaching out on me. Let me gather myself here. Let's take a quick break. I don't break down much, but that was pretty intense. We're going to go into a break here. We'll be right back, guys, on 32 Degrees of Insanity right here on FreedomizerRadio.com.
You know the Constitution like the back of your hand. You've read books, listened to podcasts, attended lectures, surfed websites, and watched videos. You've made liberty your life's goal, but something seems to be missing. Stickers from LibertyStickers.com. Exercise your freedom of speech with the world's most dangerous bumper stickers. That's LibertyStickers.com. But wait, there's more. You can buy Liberty Stickers wholesale. Get them for 99 cents each when you put 100 or more in your shopping cart in any combination. Sell them or give them away. They're great for gun shows, flea markets, fairs, outreach, and more. Earn extra money, promote freedom, and spread the word. Need custom stickers, labels, or decals for your organization or business? Liberty Stickers makes them. Go to LibertyStickers.com to order or call 877-873-9626. LibertyStickers.com, the world's most dangerous stickers.
What's up with these sorry politicians? Lots of bark. When it's showtime, whimpering like little shih tzus. You want big cuts. Ron Paul's been screaming it for years. Budget crisis? No problem. Got $1 trillion year one. That's trillion with a T. Department of Education? Gone. Interior, Energy, HUD, Commerce? Gone. Later, bureaucrats. That's how Ron Paul rolls. Want to drain the swamp? Ron Paul. Do it.
I'm Ron Paul, and I approve this message.
This is Mercy. If you're listening to this message, warriors, you are the resistance. Warriors, you are not alone. There are pockets of resistance all around the planet. We are at the brink. Read about it in The Sovereign, newspaper of the resistance. Available now at newsstands everywhere. The Sovereign is a monthly 24-page tabloid newspaper featuring incendiary content about life during wartime in the age of Obama.
Hello, listeners. This is Devastating for You, the host of the Global Perspective Show. The show covers in-depth analysis of a wide variety of topics that involve social issues, including today's current events, ranging from geopolitics, the economic sector, our health and wellness situation, while also tapping into spirituality and self-consciousness. Our main objective is to bring awareness on how our society is being controlled and manipulated by unseen forces such as New World Order, the Illuminati, the Cabal, and other unknown secret societies that have imposed agendas that restrict our ability to operate in a free-thinking, natural resource-based, self-sustaining environment. So make sure you join us every Tuesday and Thursday at 4:30 p.m. Eastern, that's 1:30 p.m. Pacific, 9:30 p.m. Greenwich Mean Time for our international listeners. And also don't forget to tune in on Saturday nights, right after Critic, at 11 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Pacific. Yeah, knowledge is power, but it's how that knowledge is used that will determine the fate of our current and future generations. You must be there in order to be aware on the Global Perspective on FreedomizerRadio.com.
Hey Vicky Hottie in Reno, what are you doing on Freedomizer Radio on Thursdays 10:30 p.m. to 12 a.m. Pacific Standard Time and Fridays at 9 p.m. to 12 a.m. Pacific Standard Time?
Well, Donny Gillson, I am going to be hosting the Heated Conversation. But you already know this because you co-host.
I sure do. Please join us as we talk about UFOs, the universe, comets, health and herbal medicine, paranormal activities, weather, planets, asteroids, earthquakes, spirituality, art, secret societies, and current events. I think we should add that we always have great guests, a packed chat room, and very interesting conversations, with your occasional quirky way we give the news.
Just remember, on Thursdays at 10:30 p.m. to 12 a.m. Pacific Standard Time and Fridays 9 p.m. to 12 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, the Heated Conversation. Oh, and by the way, we have our always fun chat room at FreedomizerRadio.com. That's FreedomizerRadio.com. Just click the chat and listen button. See you there.
From the people that brought you the roller coaster making game and who brought you the FEMA coloring books, it's the FEMA Camp Tycoon. That sounds cool! Here you will have over 800 concentration camps to choose from. Wow. You want Vegas? 29 Palms? Jacksonville? Start with Beach Grove, Indiana, and it's all yours. You'll learn how to get people on the red, the blue, and the yellow list. I want to be red. I want to be blue. Buy more trains. Get HR 645 passed, but don't pay the Senate too much money. You'll need to buy gas chambers with that. Collect barcode readers, sell souvenirs, and hit the high score on collecting millions of American people, I mean, right-wing extremists. Anyway, coming soon, FEMA Camp Tycoon.
FEMA Camp Tycoon, right here on 32 Degrees of Insanity. Donny Gillson, 11:07 in the PM. Wow, I had to get my composure there. Chris Gio, you were right. This man, Guy, it was like, when you were saying that, it was like I got this overwhelming, like, energy source that went right over me, like almost like a hug, a spiritual hug. And then, of course, Mickey came right out and gave me a physical hug. But it was amazing, Guy, that, wow, what you did there was, I don't know, but it was, I could feel it.
Well, I came across Dolores Cannon's work, and then I got in touch with her publicist, Stephanie, and Stephanie referred Guy. And I've got to say that all the levels that I've gone through with Ozark Publishing and all the people that I've met have just taken me one step further and further and further, deeper into the idea of consciousness. And so the entire group of people over there at Ozark is absolutely amazing.
I have to. I mean, this is where truth lies within the. You know, I'm a student of Dr. Carl Jung, and of course I follow his work, and I've always been fascinated by his work with the collective unconsciousness and how the source and the one is, and of course the archetypes within our own personalities and consciousness. And I have to say, I am learning so much from you tonight, Guy, and I really appreciate it. Tonight we are going to take some callers here at the top of the hour. If you want to give us a call in, 347-324-3704. Again, my co-host tonight is Chris Gio of Truth Frequency, and my special guest tonight, Guy Needler, the author of The History of God. Guy, welcome back to the show.
Thank you, Donny. Thank you, Chris. It's a pleasure to be on your show. I'm really enjoying it, to be honest. It's fantastic. And I have to say that the energies that were created between us gave the opportunity for, let's say, a portal to open up between yourself and your father. And that's why you had the experience you had before the break, basically.
Yeah, you don't catch the Don crying much, you know. But it was like, you know, I felt like I'm like, whoa, I couldn't even talk. And normally I'm like the one that can carry on whether it is or not. But it was amazing. I'm going to bring on a caller here from 914 and see what he has. Sure, he has a question for you here, Guy. 914, welcome to the show. This is Donny Gillson, 32 Degrees of Insanity, with Chris Gio and Guy Needler.
Hi, I would like to be called Sister Sarah tonight.
Hi, Sister Sarah. Welcome.
Hi, Sister Sarah.
Hi. So Donny, what did you speak to him? Do you remember? What did you say to him? You were there, right?
My father?
Right? Yeah, just now. That's what was happening, right? And you were overwhelmed with knowing that it's all real, right?
It felt like it. It was, you know, yeah. It was a spiritual hug. I could feel it going within my body. Yeah, of course.
Yeah, and I'm asking you this because it's like, because you're so great being like expressive and honest and out here, you know, right now, and it really can. You'll know what I mean if you just go a little further with this with me. It's like, cause it's going to take courage. It's like, think about it. Why didn't you?
Why didn't I talk to him?
Stay there with him. Yeah. Why didn't you talk more? Now, like, just for the, because this was a real, he was there. I know it. We were all there for it. Those of us who want to know. The other thing I'll just put in here before that question, before you even think about that is, remember, like Jesus said, those who seek will find. You've been seeking. You've been out there with cameras and telescopes and making a radio station. You want to know what's real, the truth, right?
Right.
Okay, so that's why, maybe we're not so like, I'm just saying this to everybody, but just, you're really seeking. So this is your co-creativity that's happening. And it's really important to, like, stay in that esoteric practice of this experience for us all, because we're dealing with so much information. But right now, your father, you know how long he's been trying to contact you? For that you heard him?
Yeah.
For real? And how did he know that? Because you cried. A little bit. You started to. It was emotion.
Right.
It was mind. Okay, so do you want to do that now, or you want me to just like keep going on with my ideas about this?
Well, no, I would like you to go on with it. I kind of, I don't want to get emotional on my show.
Yeah, don't.
And,
but talk to us.
I think I would like to have more interaction with our guest, of course, Guy.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
So here's what I wanted to say about this, is that I first of all, it's like finally we're talking about what I really want to be talking about all along. This is amazing. However,
why do you sound so familiar to me, by the way?
Because I talk to you all the time. I'm Sarah from Yonkers.
Ah, Sarah from Yonkers, yes.
Yeah, but tonight we are in, there's a co-creation of, it seems like what I've heard, so anybody can correct me if I'm wrong, but I've heard us all agree we like, doing this, co-creating a higher frequency or vibration, right?
Right.
So I would like to be known as Sister Sarah, where I'm known in some circles as that. The Ascended Masters, first of all. Actually, I want to ask you, are you familiar, anybody here, the term Kumar? The seven Kumars.
Guy, would you like to...
No, I've not been exposed to that, no.
Okay, he actually, the Ascended Masters came to him in 1955, which really was around the time of the beginning of the Age of Aquarius, actually, with the planets. And it was actually Moria and Kutsumi, the same people who came to Blavatsky. Now, I'll just stop there, because you don't know, and I don't want to give any more background about that. But one of the things that they continued was the practice to be able to cite many of the terms that you use that we've now become familiar here on the East Coast with, California and Hawaii are like 20 years ahead on that term. We were saying karma and, like love and light, like goofballs back in the mid-70s, being clean and seriously, drinking down in wheatgrass juice and laughing at ourselves at how, there we were like, doing as much as we could of that too, and that was all well and good and beautiful. It's like what's missing, I hear, is that, no, this is information too. Yeah, what's missing is that actually, this is in terms of there's things I disagree with you about, and there are places to cite these concepts that are as empirical as anything else. And I can simply prove that, and I'm sure that you know that too, that there's a place where science and mysticism can be argued down to the same, which is, I don't know. But we do have the ability to learn and to know and to gain knowledge. Here's what here's where I'm going to start, and this will be my portion because I know everybody needs time.
Yeah,
okay?
I've got like 4 or 5
I know
callers.
I know that. Hey, it's about what you said about the Urantia book, okay? Because I'm familiar with it, and didn't study it a lot. But here's what I do know: that the ancient mystery school, that's also linked to Rosicrucian and the real Freemasonry, at the ancient mystery schools did not name Urantia book as fraudulent. I do know that. Right. And what they mean by fraudulent is that you can be off by just one little thing. Like Aleister Crowley said, do what thou wilt be the whole of the law. He's almost right, but almost doesn't count here. It's not horseshoes, okay? So anyway, Lucifer, Satan. This is brilliant what you said, because it sparked this. I get it now. And it includes what you said about the chakras and about why it's sort of not about the fourth chakra, but yes, it is. It is, but it isn't, because that's what we're going through. We're not just we're dealing with a triangle in a circle in a square cross, which, as I understand it, you cannot have a perfect triangle and a circle. Something about it. So anyway, Lucifer and Satan, what is very interesting, they have a conversation with themselves, right? You know what that's called? It's called splitting. That's one term for it. Jung has another term for it. He calls it the shadow self, right? Yep. The other one, he splits. You know who Lucifer Satan is? He's mentally ill. That's what mental illness is. Think about it. Have you ever tried to have a relationship with people who have like false face, like they gossip, they say one thing in front of one person and one person? It's the classic narcissist. Notice it came in the 1920s to the Urantia book. I just did for the first time, so I didn't know this. Now, you put the other side on the fence. Jesus is the master. He's the ascended master of the heart chakra. So here's what I'm thinking in terms of everything that I know. And all of this can be cited. And I think maybe you should have some shows where we get other people who, and everybody who's here now, or whatever you want to set it up. But this kind of information needs to be sort of correct, because there are some things that, and to know that we can use different kinds of language to explain this. But Jesus, master of the heart chakra, and I know that in 1955, that actually Jesus, and that was sort of like Jesus was saying, Buddha came to help him. That's what happened. Jesus said, you know what? They're not doing very well, all right? Things are speeding up. So what I'm saying is, Lucifer is not one person. It's that aspect. There's no Satan in a way. It's like that's the part of gets in people. That's the lie. Is the thing that it doesn't have any substance.
Well, that's why I was talking about the archetypes of Carl Jung when he started talking about the shadow and the anime and the anima. Guy, what are your thoughts on what Sister Sarah just had to say?
Well, I think that there's an awful lot of correlation between different texts and different levels of understanding over the centuries, basically. As I said previously, as we become higher in the frequencies, we start to be able to access that detail which was previously unavailable to us. So we start to get a clearer understanding of that which is presented to us within the higher end energetic realms. So understanding the different levels of over the centuries, and knowing that it was right for its time is the right thought process to have it right now. So think of it in terms of nothing is wrong.
Right.
It's just not as deep as it would be now, as it were. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally. I just, and I think, I always think that, I've always thought, the devil himself or itself, the thought of the devil, Jesus himself walked through, through the sands, stating that the devil was at his foot, like Peter Pan, like the shadow, the shadow of you is sitting there right below your feet. And that's your lower frequency. That's some people have said that even Jesus and Satan are brothers, or they were just one was the positive, one was the negative, one was the yang, but both of them together create harmony. So as you said earlier in the show, there is really no good and there's really no evil. It's just harmony.
But the the current story of Jesus walking out in the desert, having 40 days and 40 nights of of discussion with himself, and the quote, "The devil was by his feet," as it were, unquote.
Right.
Is really basically an aspect of understanding that this individual, this master, was training himself, or was being trained to exist within the physical and work with the physical, whilst not being affected by the physical. So not being tempted by that which is physical. And the devil is actually just a metaphor that suggests that the devil gave us the opportunity of free will, which puts down the frequencies, which gave us the physical world. It didn't create the physical world, it created the opportunity for us to create the physical world by being attracted to lower frequencies. So that's the metaphor, that's the association with the physical. And therefore, Jesus going out there for 40 days and 40 nights and communing with himself was preparation for existing within the physical, but not getting consumed by it, not getting addicted by the sensation of being within the physical, the wealth aspect, the fame aspect, the being a king aspect, if you want to call it that. All those sort of things he was working out and making sure that he existed in an extremely minimalistic condition, a renunciance condition, so that he didn't get intoxicated by the opportunity of things that present themselves in the physical sensation that we get in the physical universe.
I just had an aha moment when you were saying that. I know myself, I have struggled with, wanting to be more than what I am. I've struggled with wanting to have fame. I've struggled with, wanting to be a broadcaster that can, that is respected and all of this. But on the other hand, I also have seen, as I have grown spiritually over the years, and I'm talking when I was in my 20s and my 30s, but now as I've grown into my 40s, I see that diminishing, and I see that minimalistic world that I like to live in my own little private world. Yeah, it's fun to get on the radio, play and have some fun and talk and throw stuff out into the universe, because I know that what I'm throwing out there is good, positive energy, and like a boomerang effect will come back and allow me to grow. But it gets to the point, where now I still see all of this greed out there in the world, and this how we're grooming children to want fame and power and all this, and that's not a part of the new world, I don't believe.
Well, exactly, yes. I mean, this is the thing, you see. It's recognizing that we need to exist in the physical, and we only need that which we need to exist in the physical, and we don't need anything more than that. There's an old adage, somebody who earns £100 a year, and this is a long time ago, this old adage, but spends £101 is unhappy. Somebody who owns £100 a year and spends £99 only is very happy. Now, the aspect of spending more than you earn is to do with the desire to have that which is out of our reach and that which we believe is necessary. But actually, a lot of what we have around us is unnecessary,
right?
And is just clutter.
I call it static.
Yeah, it's a tie. It's a tie to the physical.
Yes.
It is that which stops us from rising to the frequencies, because we get associated with the ownership of various things. Like having a huge mortgage to have the house that we desire. Actually all we need is a flat somewhere.
Oh yeah, I mean, I know over the last 5 years, I've lost a lot of things materialistically, and I mean, I've moved. I basically moved from Minnesota to Reno, Nevada, with basically a backpack. Had some things shipped, but gave the rest of it to my stepson. Of my ex's son. Said, you can have it. Don't worry about it. Got rid of my car. Got rid of anything that was a tie to me. because I remember one of my dear Masonic friends, Freemason by the way, he told me that you need to cut, not physically cut, like cut yourself, but cut yourself these ties to these things that are just static.
Absolutely, yeah.
And if those things need to come back to you, if you need them to survive, or if you need them, I have a modest apartment that Vicki and I live in. I live very modestly now. I don't, and it doesn't bother me any. And I think it gets me more connected to the source each and every day. Like today, I was walking, I was out doing my deal, and all I could, the entertainment that I looked at was the sky. It was so beautiful, and it was great entertainment. Didn't spend a dime.
Okay, yes, absolutely. I mean, the thing is that at the end of the day, we only need to have a roof over our heads and enough money to pay our bills and feed and water us. We need nothing else.
Because what we're doing here on this earth, and correct me if I'm wrong, is this was an assignment. We've come here on assignment to follow a plan that we've already preconceived before we came here and incarnated in this body, and we just kind of have to follow through with it. Is that correct?
Absolutely right. There is a certain plan that we have where we have to achieve certain levels of experience, if you want to call it that, and as a result we learn from that experience and we evolve that experience. And how we do that whilst we're in the physical is actually up to us, basically. Now the object of doing it in the physical is that we don't have access to that high level aspect of ourselves that is in communication with the rest of the cosmos. So we don't know where we're going, basically. Whereas in the energetic we would do, and that's the whole part of existence in the physical, is to do the work we need to do without the function of foresight. So we make a true decision on what we're doing, and we make true efforts of working with that which we're supposed to work with, but we do it in a way which is not benefited by or augmented by those facilities that we have when we're in the energetic. In effect, we're doing things blind, but we're doing them blind because in doing them blind we have an opportunity to evolve much faster than what we would do if we were given with sight, basically. It's like driving a car.
Sure. Donny, I got another caller here that I want to, and Sister Sarah, sorry I cut you off there. Wanted to get a point out here with Guy, but we've got one of our regular listeners calling in here. 440. This is Donny and Guy and Chris. Welcome to the show.
Yeah, hey guys. In the chat I'm Star family member, but you guys just call me Mike. I just really had a quick question, and that's why I was waiting so patiently to talk. I was wondering, because since we have a guest on the show tonight that's so familiar with frequency, I wanted to ask him if he was familiar with all of the government research on frequency between, I believe it's 8.4 and 8.6 megahertz, which is all of the range between all of human beings. Basically, it's the frequency that our brain works on. It's, somebody cracked the code that, all of the biomechanical electricity our body creates for our nervous system that's shot up into the brain, it works within this frequency of 8.4 megahertz to 8.6 megahertz. And the government has been studying this for, it's been for a while, but I guess recently they've stepped it up over the past 2 or 3 years. I just wanted to ask the guest if he knew anything about that, and basically, if he does know something about it, is it true that they are working on ways to manipulate the way we think. And I can already prove before I hang up that some of the things are there, like the new iPad, the new iPad that just came out has this new retinal screen that actually works with the optic nerves of your brain. Like, you look at the new iPad, and you see a picture on the screen, but it's more than that. Like, the picture on the screen, like, it's sending a frequency. The iPad itself sends this 8.4 to 8.6 megahertz into your brain, directed toward your optic nerve to make the whole picture greater. Or another one was in New York City, they had a billboard, and you walk past the billboard, and people would walk past the billboard, and they would hear whispers, but there was no sound, there was no speaker, because the whispers that were heard were actually this 8.4 to 8.6 frequency directed towards their auditory, or their not, what is that called? Yeah, their hearing nerves. Auditory, yeah. So that's all I wanted to say, and I'm going to hang up. But I was just wondering if you knew about the government research of the 8.4 to 8.6 megahertz frequency, and that's like basically the frequency that our human body runs on. The biomechanical energy from the potassium ketamine cycle, or whatever it is, that creates electricity and the frequency. Anyways, I'm going to get off, and I just wanted to say thank you, and have a nice evening, and I'll listen to your response on the other side.
Yeah.
All right.
If the caller stays on a moment here, Donny.
Yeah.
I've not actually heard of that experimentation, but as you were speaking, I did pick up something from the source entity to explain what is going on. In effect, there is research to use this level of technology in two ways. One is to use it for military aspects, where it's going to be used for interrogation of individuals, to force them to release information that they would not have done normally, because they're using a method of control in the brain that is overriding the natural control that the physical aspect of us has got. And secondly, it's also being used, or planning to be used, potentially for subliminal advertising, to make us go out and buy things that we wouldn't normally buy. And there's already subliminal advertising out there anyway right now.
Right.
It's prevalent. It's everywhere. But this is a completely different aspect. It's almost like yourself telling yourself that you need to go out there and buy a Big Mac, for instance. So there's the military aspect, the covert aspect, which is used for interrogation, and in some instances, I've also picked up, it's going to be used to pre-program individuals to act as drones, basically, to be able to go in and do things that they wouldn't normally have done themselves, putting themselves in a dangerous situation that they would have rejected previously. So there's this military aspect of interrogation and brainwashing, if you want to call it that, but also there's this aspect of advertisements as well, subliminal advertisements, making us buy product that we wouldn't normally have used. But on the other side of it, there's another government body within there, which has just come into my mind, which are also thinking of using it to control the individual's thought processes in terms of the way they vote.
Wow.
So, yeah, and it'll be tied into it'll be the carrier waves that are used to transmit radio waves and TV. When certain presidential candidates, etc., or senator candidates are presenting their spiel, their presidential rally lectures or talks, they will also be presented this information about them and this necessary desire for us to vote for these individuals over this frequency, which will be on the back of the frequencies that are being used to transmit radio and television.
You know, I have a question for you. You know, back, you know, I was trained as a classical singer. And, you know, back during Mozart and Beethoven's time, music was tuned to about 432 hertz. And now, I don't know if you've read anything about Minister Joseph Goebbels, I think it was. He was the Nazi propaganda minister.
Mm-hmm.
He, back in 1939, dictated that 432 would not be the standard quality anymore, that that all concert instruments would be tuned to 440. Have you heard anything in regards to this? And I heard this just carries over into the MK Ultra, into mind control, and also interesting that that Star Family brings that in regards to these iPods and even MP3 is now standardly tuned to that, and it's supposed to offset our pineal gland and also could offset the ascension process of DNA activation.
Yeah, I mean, in essence, it's lower frequency, and straight away, the information I've been getting as you've been speaking, it's lower frequency. It blocks higher frequency aspects of ourselves. But more importantly, it attracts us to the physical as a response to this. If you like, some of the music that was being used in the Second World War was rousing music.
Right.
And if you think of the Flight of the Valkyrie that Hitler used to like, he used to love Wagner.
Yes.
And he used to like playing the Flight of the Valkyrie. And as a result of that, it was rousing music. It used to sort of, you know, stir the hearts of men to go out and fight, you know, with honour for their nation. And you can understand that using those frequencies for those with those pieces of music where they were stirring and they did sort of bring the best out of you in terms of, you know, the need to fight for your man and country, man, king and country, or whatever it was, would have been an absolute superb piece of military equipment to improve the fighting potential of the army and the fighting force. So this level of technology, well, it's been around for ages, of course, much earlier than we're talking about with the Second World War with Goebbels, and because there was various pieces of technology they were using that used sound waves to destroy physical buildings and things. They were using sound to try and destroy buildings and stuff like that as well, and to destroy fighting forces by just bombarding them with frequency and killing them that way. It also can be used for more subtle, more insidious methodologies of controlling us and making us do things. And again, you know, if you're using the same frequencies to stir people up and make them fight with music, then, you know, you can use it and the multiplexed information, which is what we use right now an awful lot, and to multiplex this other information into the standard transmissions that we use every day, you know, advertisements, TV shows or radio shows, to introduce thought processes into us that we wouldn't normally invoke, basically. Yeah. So.
Well, it's like, you know, it's like, you know, my Vicky is deep into kind of this death metal, and whenever I hear it, it's just like, oh God, please turn that stuff off. You know, me, I'm very, you know, one of my favorite bands is the Grateful Dead, who, you know, brought me on that spiritual journey whenever I listened to them. Although, you know, I probably was part of that, you know, because I followed the Dead for many years. I was probably part of that CIA operative MK Ultra program to see what kids would do with hallucinogens and music. But you know, I look back at when I listened to classical music, and how, like, even driving in a car and I would listen to classical music, I could feel my whole energy just shift. It was like the dimensions shift right in front of me, and I was in a totally different state than I would feel if I'm listening to, like, say, modern music. It's just it's a totally different state.
That's right, and it doesn't just occur with classical music. It's to do with the way that the music is written and the intention behind the music. Yeah. It's specifically to do with the intention behind the music and the way it's written and the
That's a good.
The frequency is accessed as a result of it. Yeah.
The intensity behind the music. Another question I have for you. Now we talked. We've had an incredible show here, and Guy, I really want to thank you so much for joining us tonight. I know it's a lot. What time is it over there?
It's 6:40 in the morning.
40 in the morning. So you woke up early for us. Thank you so much. I greatly. You're over in the UK, is that correct?
Yeah. Well, I tend to get up usually around 4:45, 5 o'clock anyway to do my meditations. So it's not too early for me.
Good. Let me ask you. Now you said you said you've got a new book coming out. Is that correct?
Yeah, there's a new book coming out. It's effectively part 1 of 2 because the information is quite new and dramatic. It's called Beyond the Source, and it's being published by Ozark Mountain Publishers. It will be, which is obviously one of Dolores Cannon's ventures. It's a dialogue that continues beyond our own source entity. So in effect, I have 6 main chapters, and the first chapter is extended information that I've gained from talking with our own source entity or our God, and then I'm progressing beyond that to the co-creators, to use a piece of understandable nomenclature.
Sure.
Or the other source entities, and this book records the dialogues I've had with the first 6 source entities that were created by the origin, which the Hindu texts call the absolute, or all that is, and it has. Would
this be safe to say the light energies? Would that be safe to be what you're saying? Just stating.
I'm sorry.
Light entities, would that be safe to say?
Source entities.
Yeah, but would that be, if we were to kind of put it in context, isn't the source, wouldn't that be a light entity, not a physical entity?
Well, the source would be a light entity, yes, definitely. Okay. And we're all smaller aspects of that entity anyway. So we're all little individualized units of God, if you want to use that way of explaining it.
Okay, yeah.
But that much larger part of us, that bigger part that we are, that created us and split itself off into and made the countless billions of individualized entities, was also created by a single and larger entity, which is right now only just starting to understand itself. So the origin, when it first became self-aware, created 12 source entities to help it to accelerate its own awareness of self and therefore create the evolutionary content that goes with it. But the origin itself is only aware of a minute fraction of 1% of its own sphere of self-awareness. So if you understand that it recognises and knows and has mapped a mere fraction of 1% of itself, but it's aware that there's a greater mass out there. It's a bit like us knowing our own back garden, but knowing there's a country called Australia,
right?
or even a universe out there. We know it's out there because we know it's out there, but we don't know the detail of what's out there. But we've managed to map our own back garden, or maybe we haven't, the case may be. Thinking about my own back garden. but yeah, so this particular book, Beyond the Source, which I think is going to have a subtitle, Communications with the Co-Creators, should be coming out in May. It's just finished the editing process for the publisher. It's about to go for layout, and it goes to the dialogues I've had with the first 6 source entities. The second book, I'm 2/3 of the way through, which goes through dialogues with the second 6, or the last 6 of the 12 source entities, or the last 6 of the 12 co-creators, and that should be finished in time for the Transformation Conference, which is being held in Rogers in middle of July.
Now, one other question that I have, and Chris Gio on his show on Truth Frequency this past weekend, there was a conversation about the Hollow Earth, and what is your take on this so-called Hollow Earth do you believe are there entities underneath us that are connected to the source? Is there a hollow Earth, or is it a falsity? And of course, the Earth is a solid mass object, and we are the beings that were put on this Earth through the source to experience this. And or are there other entities among us that we just do not see, and possibly within a hollow Earth?
Yeah. Quite simply, the Earth does have an amount of hollowness, if you want to call it that, but not in the way people think. There are
subterranean, would probably.
Yeah, there are subterranean constructs that have been created by other entities, physical entities that are outside of our frequency range, that are there to help manage the Earth and help the Earth ascend as well, and points and sometimes help us being pointed in the right direction. So they're sometimes called the keepers. They're sometimes called other race names, but that's unimportant. They're there to help maintain the Earth and work with us and help us evolve. But there are entities out there who are purely energetic in nature and can exist within what is supposed to be physical.
Sure.
And do exist within what is supposed to be physical, because they decide that they desire to do that, or decide to do that. So there are entities who are residing within the Earth who are purely energetic in nature, and they don't need to be on the surface. They just move around the inside, basically, because that's what they want. That's what they do. That's what they're working with. And in some instances, some of these entities are purely energetic in nature, not physical at all, and they are also maintaining the Earth as a result of that. So the aspect of, is there a hollow Earth, not specifically, are there constructs to allow the existence of other entities work with the Earth? Yes, they're all over the place. However, the aspect of a large hollow Earth is merely a figurative speak for that which is relevant to other entities which can move at will throughout the construct of the Earth.
Now, the last part of your book, and I read the book description earlier, it says, the last sentence, it says, also includes information on extraterrestrials as a similar species and their involvement with the human race. Can in the last 10 minutes of the show, can you kind of expand on that? Because one of the things that we've been discussing here on 32 Degrees of Insanity is the involvement in extraterrestrials as fallen angels, as, you know, we could be having a disclosure coming here fairly soon, mass landings and such, false flags, people taking people away in ships. Of course, the Georgia Guidestone's 32-year anniversary is coming up here, which people have talked about that say, you know, that we'll have mass landings. People are going to get on these ships. They're going to go up into these ships. The entities are going to say, hey, look at the Earth. The Earth just got destroyed. You came with us, thank gosh, because, you know, we saved you. We're your savers. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, there certainly are other entities that are of a physical nature, and they are of a physical nature that is just about perceivable by ourselves with our own human eye. And they're all over the physical universe. We are, if you like, in quarantine because of what we're doing in terms of our free will experiments, and therefore able to affect all sorts of different things. We're in quarantine. But the Earth is a bit like an important piece of circuitry in a larger computer circuit. When we ascend, that part of the circuitry will start to work again, and the whole universe will ascend. So there's a lot of interest in this experiment, as it were, by those other physical entities who are who haven't got individual free will, but they've got individualized, but need to be necessarily collective in their will and their decision process. So if we succeed in what we're doing, and we are going to succeed, then these other entities will be given the same gifts as what we've got. So they are coming along and they're having a look at us and they're observing what's going on, because it's the greatest show in the universe right now.
Right.
And, you know, there are physical entities that are, you know, from different galaxies and different planets within our own galaxy, and there are entities which are, you know, completely energetic in nature, but nevertheless physical.
Mm-hmm.
And in terms of people being taken in spaceships and things, those entities that are taken in spaceships, they're a bit like when we monitor animals on the Earth, then we sort of, we put them to sleep a bit and then put a tagging device on them, and then we let them go again to see how, where they travel, like geese, for instance, see how they migrate.
Right.
And this is the sort of thing which is going on with some of these supposed abductions, where individuals who are basically energetic entities, not from mankind's energetic pool, but they've come to help the Earth. They've come to be incarnate at this point in time on the Earth. So they're not natural or incumbent energetic mankind, but they are from a different energetic pool, if you want to call it that. They've come in. They've incarnated in the physical. They've probably done it once or twice or even 10 times, but they are then contacted on a semi-regular basis by entities of their own kind, who they are still working with on a subconscious basis. So they are being taken away and being monitored, and they feed back information. And they download information about the intricacies of working within the physical.
Well,
now,
go ahead. Sorry. No, go ahead.
In terms of an ascension where, we get a mass landing,
mm-hmm.
I've had many dreams and meditations where this happens, and it's been so real, it's been untrue, and I've stood there thinking, oh, there you are.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly the way I feel. I was like looking at the clouds, and the clouds the other day. We're looking here in Nevada. You get what they call UFO clouds. There's a strange, really you don't see how many anywhere in the world other than here in the Sierras. And I was looking at the clouds. I'm like, come on, guys, show yourselves. I'm not really too scared of entities, but I do believe that there are entities out there that have our goodwill at heart, that they just cannot intrude, like watchers of sorts. That until the source says, okay, it's time, But I also believe that there are other entities, evil entities, that are being overpowered now. And I think, as we said at the beginning of the show, we are winning and ascending. And I think the time will come when all of the family, the ancient families, will all meet and have a better understanding of the universe, because all will be revealed.
Yeah, and there will be a revelation, if you want to call it that, at a point in time where it will be natural as a revelation. We will discover and supposedly be discovered, if you want to call it that.
Right.
We will discover these entities, and we will work with them, and it will be recognised that there are those entities who are not working, lower evolved entities that nevertheless have higher technology, if you want to call it that. They aren't specifically working for the total good. They're more selfish than they ought to be. But the vast majority of entities out there are working towards the evolution of themselves, and therefore the evolution of the source entity, and therefore the evolution of the origin. And at some point when we get to this level of, when we rise to the frequencies and we start to become more and more awake, our ability to perceive the greater reality will get greater and greater and greater, and we will start to naturally see these things. So in terms of a giant spaceship landing, like globally, I'm not getting the impression that will happen. But what will happen is we'll start to perceive them more, and we'll start to see them more. So
I think the veil of the different dimensions is starting to be lifted, and as of course those who wish to see will see, I think the source itself will, is the more your energy is attracted to the real source, I think greater the visions or the sightings that you will have. Because I have had first contact. I know I have. I've met entities that are from not of this world. However, they do look like entities that are from this world. They look like you and me. But I've met them. I've talked and had a conversation. They told me, and people think I'm crazy when I say that, but I know it's true, and I know what I saw, and I know what I felt.
Yeah, and to be honest, it's not uncommon. that individuals who are of the right level of evolution are exposed to these opportunities. It's a nice thing to do when you are in fact exposed to these things. And to be honest, the human form is quite a common form throughout the physical universe, because it's a useful form to have.
Yeah.
So although it might change in form factor slightly, it's quite a common form. Obviously, there's loads of other form factors out there, as you can see from the plethora of fauna and flora on the Earth, and a lot of those have been transplanted from different physical planets. But in terms of contact with other entities, a lot of the entities that we are exposed to are primarily energetic in nature, but they're able to create a physical representation of themselves that would be in keeping with what we would like or can cope with seeing. So they will, in essence, give themselves a human form to communicate with us on a logical and meaningful basis.
Oh, that's weird that you say that, because the one of the entities that I met, her was a female I met in I had this, like, I was drawn to her in this bar, and she was the one, I sat down, she had like this motherly attitude to me, and she got up and she's like, everything will be okay, we're aliens, don't worry about it. And she walks out, but the only thing I could imagine her doing was shape-shifting into something, non-human. And I just had this whole weird feeling. It was trippy for another show. But we got a couple more minutes left of the show. I want to close out with you here, and I really want to thank you so much for joining us tonight. How can people get a hold of you? Do you have a website? When are you going to be on the air next? All this good stuff.
Well, I'm going to be on Mike Quimsey's program on the 20th of April.
Awesome.
Which is going to be about an hour long, which is fantastic. I've also got a number of lectures around the UK. I'm doing some workshops in the States just after the Transformation Conference I'm doing it in Santa Fe.
Yeah, you're doing some sort of cruise or something too?
Yeah, I'm working with Dolores Cannon on the New Earth cruise, which is the Italian and the Greek islands, which is in October.
How cool is that?
So I'm doing some workshops in Detroit and in Santa Fe within the 2 weeks after the Transformation Conference, and I've got other lectures and other workshops around the UK as well, and in Ireland. So it's just great stuff. People can contact me in the back of the book. There's an email address, which is thehistoryofgod@btinternet.com. So
Awesome. Well, I want to thank you so much. Chris, anything you want to say before we take off? We've got about a minute left. Are you there still?
Oh, it's been a pleasure. Always enlightening hearing from Guy, and I'm glad that I was able to be a part of it.
Oh, Chris, thank you for introducing me to Guy. Guy, I would love to have you on again. We can go deeper into this stuff. By that time, I have read your book, and we can really go deep into some real deep subjects, because you're just fascinating to me.
Thank you, Donny. Thank you, Chris. Absolute pleasure. Thank you very much.
Oh, you guys are great. Again, 32 Degrees of Insanity. Just remember, guys, this Friday, Evie Hamill will be on the Heated Conversation with Vicky. Tune in. She'll be with her for about an hour and a half. Of course, tune in for the Truth Frequency Radio with Chris Gio and Cherie on Thursday and Saturday evenings. And, of course, join me back here on 32 Degrees of Insanity right back here next Monday. Next Wednesday, we're going to be talking about dark therapy and how to conquer bipolar disorder. So it's going to be a very, very, very interesting show. And, of course, Bob Powell of Above Top Secret will be with me on Monday right here on 32 Degrees of Insanity. So definitely set your numbers for that day. Thank you, Guy Leeler. Thank Chris Gio. Thank you, Vic. Love you guys. Talk to you soon. God bless.
Sure. Thank you. Bye.
Thanks, guys.
Hey, thanks, Donny.
Hey,
I've got to go get these carpet cleaning chemicals off of me.
Oh, not a problem.
I walked in 10 minutes before the show.
All right, guys. Talk to you later. God bless.
Have a great day.
Bye.
Have a great night.